Well, and let's start on time. Welcome, everyone. I was going back to welcome everyone to our free Zoho user session today. I went back to my files uh, to count how long we've been doing these free sessions. So Gravity Marketing is a Zoho authorized partner, and I kind of had to do the math, but it was like we've been doing and hosting these Zoho free sessions for 5 years in a row now, starting 2018. And I'm super proud of this because every month we share tips and tricks or anything new that has come out of the CRM best practices, ways to implement it, because we use it daily with so many of our customers as their outsourced marketing firm, and that's how we share all the things we know about Zoho. So today we're going to talk a little bit about Zoho CRM, a beginner's guide. I went back to the first sessions held and see what people are asking and kind of compare with they're still asking us currently. And I think companies sometimes and organizations are looking um, to learn the same things. It's just that the platform has evolved and has new ways to get there. So we'll be sharing those today. Today also we have Kayla with us from Gravity Marketing. Andrew will have other people joining us as well. This session is recorded and will be shared later on. So let's kickstart because time is money. Uh, Let me make sure that it's coming. Okay. So the most important point, just we always say this at the start of these sessions, is to have questions from users, because that's the whole point of building these sessions, is for people to come in, ask their questions. We just happen to have topics to kind of feed the conversation and spark the conversation. So we have like topics about how to maintain contacts in one place with some free tips and best practices on when you're using the CRM, how to manage the sales pipeline, a very obviously high level, because we only have half an hour, and then a little bit on dashboards and activity tracking in the CRM. So if you have a question, I really prefer you just interrupt, just ask anytime of the Q&A. There's a Q&A section on the left of your screen, so you can just type it away. Or you can also unmute yourself and just ask the question live, because this is to mimic really a open session, as we used to do them, host them face to face before. All right, so let's get in there. Quick question, just a bit of a reflection point before we show kind of how to do is it, it's a bit of to fill the ground is, where do all your business contacts live? So are you currently using CRM for everything? Most people are not. From our experience, different people are using, most contacts still live in Outlook and individual people's email accounts, Outlook, Gmail, whichever system you're using. Excel files spread out from analysis that um, clients run. If you do have a CRM or ERP, that could also be another spot. Quoting system, sometimes it's when you issue the quote that you have to create the email or the contact. Billing systems, usually always very reliable of who true customers are. But this is a hurdle that a lot of companies face. So when to organize and how to organize, and one of the questions actually we had ties with this before the session. So this is in a snapshot. I'm going to walk through this and see how in the CRM I would organize this. In general, obviously, we consult with companies to understand their business process and sales process, to understand how it should be organized. But if I would say, 90% of the cases, this is how you should deal with the data. So to have contacts in one place, how do you organize your contacts? So kind of in the middle of everything is really about, if you're a B2B business, you really want to track the companies you do business with and the individuals who work for those companies. So these are in the CRM what are called accounts and your contacts. I named them differently here on purpose because one of the key tips is to customize your CRM from day one to what your organization calls things, right? Because every company calls them different things: accounts, customers, companies, organizations. If you're B2C, you might not actually even need the company or account module. You could just be talking to individuals. Your companies could be your vendors, partners, um, if you're tracking those in the CRM. Then, and there's always a lot of people have confusions like, what do I do with leads? So who's a lead, a prospect? Well, the main point here is, think of this section as your, old Rolodex, or everyone who exists should really exist here, created as a company and individual contact, tied to a company if they work for someone, if they're not just a single own B2C person. Leads should really be used to deal with, we call them, it's the module managed to bring things to your attention, someone who inquired about something you're actively looking at. But ideally, I always say it should be full and should be empty at the same time. On the same day, you should be getting leads and you should be treating them and converting them into something, whether it's a company and a contact or an opportunity because you want to have sales time, sales effort allocated to understanding that lead. So usually what should be in leads, it's something, for example, a quick sales prospecting. I found that contact, put it in there because I'll need to come back and see if it's worth going. A scan of a business card that I want to go through if I'm on an event. Um, if I'm running trade shows, online events, and I need to dump a list, right? And this is just everyone who signed up, dump them in lists and work them from there. Website driven. If you have a website form, a contact us, a quote request, any sort of inquiry, they should come in as leads. Because the whole point of this module in the CRM is to be dealt with, right? You have that cluster of information. You don't know if you already have them as a company or contact in the CRM. You don't know if they're interesting to have, but that's the whole point, is to process that. And if you're not doing that, then you're not really looking at everyone who is inquiring you. Um, then you could just have them in a you know as not to contact leads. You can have them also segmented inside the leads module, so they're not like bothering you or not it's not something you want to pay attention. So let's go and see how you can do that. And then opportunities is all about, it's where the money is. That's what I always explain it. It's where the money is. That means that a lead could jump straight into a company and opportunity because it's worth reaching out and following up or qualifying right away. A contact who was, awakened by a newsletter that we sent him or her can become an opportunity because now, there was a reply and that reply becomes an opportunity, but the company individual still exists as a unique record. So let's see how that goes in one example. So this is an example of a lead section that has, small, nice and small because you want to, these are being treated and these are just the RFQs. So you can create views and I'll show how to do that. And that's ideal where you can have all your leads that have come in. Um, you have your accounts, which would be your company. So this is the case of a B2B. So the company is anyone that it's interesting to you to keep a record. So instead of keeping it in your Outlook, instead of keeping it in an Excel file somewhere, you should have everyone here and you should have everyone as a type of account. So account type is very important. So here it's how you're going to classify that. Is it a customer? Is it a prospect? Some people can even go deeper and distinguish between prospects and suspects. If it's, for example, if it's someone I don't actually know if I'm interested in following up with. Um, Past customer or end consumer, in this case, end customer is kind of the user of the customer. Industries, vendors, partners, suppliers, how you name them. That's how you should distinguish them then, because then you can deal with the contacts inside those accounts. Contacts are the people who work for these companies, right? For these accounts. So a person is really unique here and it should be unique by the email. So the email should be unique. You should not allow duplicates. So you make sure you only have that person once. And then you should keep track of the lead source. So you always know where these people came from. So whether it's a sales prospecting website, you bought a list, you have your marketing team prospecting it, or a sales external team. So keeping track of that can also allow you to segment this and then do different things with these contacts. And then potentials, that's really where the money is. So when you create a potential, this is like, it's like, is it worth quoting someone? Is it worth even considering that inquiry? But because you're allocating sales time, you should really have an opportunity. You should not be living or letting your sales team live in the contacts area, managing potentials in contacts. That's not a good practice. So one of the questions I think we had just before was like, how should one categorize a person with whom sales has communicated before, but it has been established that no business relation will arise? This is a very good question, and we've come across it several times. So this is clearly a contact because it's a person who has inquired you, you know, interesting enough not to be deleted. But let's say it came in as a lead. Let's say it just came via the website, right? We have this test person who came via the website. with their email, and they're asking for something, and you're like, I'm not really interested in this. You could have several approaches. You can have emails automated to say, or you can have email templates just to help you reply, say, I'm not interested. Um, okay, and this is me saying, so let's say you have your lead there. If you're having that as a lead because it came in automatically, then I would convert this to a contact, but I wouldn't select the potential. So I would just create a new contact. I would not create a potential because that means I don't want to spend, there's no point in pursuing a relationship with them. If this is something I spotted that came automatically, right? So let's look at different scenarios. So don't create a potential. Um, Another scenario is you have a contact already existed. So let's look at our, okay, so I have a contact myself. And I actually started because I thought there was a potential. So that could be another situation. If there is a potential, then create a potential, go through your potential, or this all sorts of different ways to call these, right? I'm just going to create it. We can look at it. And if you've been through your potential and you've talked, you did your need analysis, and then you decided, no, this is really not something I want, just have your section of usually like a closed stalled phase to just kill it and say there was no interest in pursuing this business relationship. The potential is automatically closed when you do this, so it won't show on the pipeline. Um, and your contact is still there. The value of that is that if you obviously if your contact is total junk, then you could just delete it. But it seems that the question was more in a sense of, there's no business relationship to have now. Maybe in the future, you still might be someone you want to get some sort of like mass communication. You do, then I would keep it. Or even if you want to know, even just for the sake of knowing, I don't want to do business with this person in case they inquire again, you would have that information. So let me know if this question was answered. Um, so I hope this kind of gives a light on how to deal with things. So if we think of like if people were, like people are something physical and tangible, they should be living here. They're all individual contacts um, that work for certain companies, and that's why these twos are tied together. All the rest are temporary things we're working on. Leads we should be sorting and deciding delete them, turn them as junk or convert them into a company in a contact, um, or actually even convert them and add an opportunity. An opportunity is when it's actually the project itself, it's the quoting, it's the assessing. Um, so it's not, contacts have to exist here to be tied to an opportunity. So quick tips when we're doing this, and I already kind of gave a few, but one important thing when you're starting, and as a beginner's guide today, or more focused from starting, make sure that you name the modules the way it makes sense for your organization. And that kind of eases a lot the process of calling things the right things. You could see leads, accounts, contacts, and deals. You could see suspects, because everyone who inquires from me is a suspect because I have no idea if I want to work with them. Companies, people, projects, let's say, because that's how you call them. Students, professors, administrators. As long as it ties to your business, that's the main point. Where you do this is in the settings section. If you come to your customization, top modules and fields, organize modules. This is where you would organize the ones you want to see. So this is very important. Not a lot of people do this. So you could just tick off everything you don't want and let it in what you need. And then if you want to rename this, you come here and you rename the module. It will ask you for the form in plural and singular, and that's it. You save and it's done. So name everything you want to see and make sure you organize them, and you can move them around if you didn't want to see them like that. Okay. All right. Other important things, customize your views. So make sure that when you're looking at data, it's meaningful. So for example, even tied with that earlier question, when we're looking at the CRM, what are views? So these are modules, right? The top ones are modules. Um, And this is a view, an example I showed here before. For example, the website gets a lot of stuff in, right? There's people submitting careers submissions, for example. Um, there will be quote requests. So I want to make sure that, for example, from a sales perspective, I'm only looking at my open RFQ leads. So to create this, it's very simple. So when you click on, you have a new custom view. You should call it, let's call it Anna's view, sales view. And I want to, this is a filter. It's just going to be a sort of pre-filter. So I'm going to say, I only want to know the ones that ask us for marketing as prospected or contact us or requested a quote, for example. And I could say, for example, and lead status, it's not junk, because if I mark something as junk, isn't junk or not qualified. This depends obviously on what makes sense for your company to keep, but these two are kind of mandatory for Zoho. You can't get rid of these two status. So keep those. And then I don't like the first last name. I just like the full name, because just one field just makes it easier to see. Company, email. And then I might want to look at things that they asked, like how did they hear about us? But maybe I'm more interested in actually um, like project description, what they asked about, quantities, when do they need it. And then this is the beauty. You can be just for yourself, because it's really my view. I could make it public, or I could select specific people I want to share it with. So come to your users and select people you would want, or roles or groups. So let's say it's just to me right now. This makes it a shortcut. Every time I'm view on this module leads, it allow me to see Anna's view. I can make it favorite as well. But see how everything is organized exactly how I put it. And if I realize, oh no, I want to see, first I want to see something else, I'll just come here and organize it. Let's say I want company first. It's just easy for me. And then I'll probably want a phone number. And this is what you could do. Okay, so very important, customize your views. And then fields. So if you're, obviously CRM is a place for data. So you don't lose your data, you don't get frustrated in a few months or years time with how things are set. I always advise you to choose, whenever you can, closed option types of fields. That means pick lists. So let's see what that is. Because you want to make sure that it's, when someone is adding something, it's very easy to add data with options. So let's look at our lead module again. So this is when you're trying to collect things. So for example, let's say industry, it's a good example. You don't want people just typing whatever they think the industry is. Give them a few options. So create a pick list, call it exactly what you want to call it, and then just add a few options. If you have a lot of them, I would suggest open an Excel file and add one in each line. And then you can just do a add bulk options, copy paste them here, and they'll be showing right away. The other cool thing you have predefined choices. For example, if you want to add days of the week or US states, this is very common, right? So you have one way to add these. And there's more, obviously. Okay. So every time you can. The other thing is choosing for certain fields, choosing the type of field, right? Website, instead of making a single line, make sure you use the URL option, because then it will be clickable and you'll make sure that people have to add a valid URL. So stuff like that really helps. The same with phones and emails. The other thing that's very important is not in leads. I wouldn't advise you to do this in leads, but in contacts is essential, is to make sure that your email, so let's come here, and let's make sure your email is unique. So when you click on your field, you have kind of two key elements: mark it as required or do not allow duplicate values. So you'll have a limit of how many fields you can have as this, because this could be very annoying if you have users using the CRM and they're not going to, they're going to be blocked because there's always more information being asked. But one thing that's essential is to have something that's unique. Otherwise, you're going to have the same person 10 times, I guarantee you, or the same company. So the email is the best one, do not allow duplicate values. If you're looking for a mobile phone, this is also a good one, to not allow duplicate values. Phones, not so much, because obviously if you only have like the main phone number for several people, you still want to be able to add different people.
Hey, Anna, we received a question on modules. Do
Hmm.
you think you can answer it?
All right, thank you. So can you create a view based on other modules, such as products, for example, view of all contacts who have purchased product X? And so you can't do that in the views. For that, I would use, that's a very good question, I would use reports. So that's where I would create a report. Um, so in this example, you would create a report. I don't think I have products in here. Oh, sorry. I don't think, oh, this account might actually have it. They're not active, but let's say I want contacts and products to be my other module. Let's start with the tabular, just to getting some data. I won't have data here because I don't have products on this account set up, but this is how I would save it. So, and then you could create probably a few filters here, for example, uh, product name. It's not empty, just to make sure you're running things that have a product. I'm going to have 0. Yep, that's what I expected on this one. But this is how I would do it. So if you want to cross-check information between different modules, the report would be the best. And then just click on your favorite, so you actually have it right at top, because then you have your favorite reports just showing up. You don't have to go through because there's so many. So thank you, Ethan. That was a really, really good question. All right. Other things, and if you have more questions, please go ahead and ask. Um, Type of data you need to collect, we can across this. Duplicate free, we can across this as well. There's a deduplication functionality in the CRM, but the best thing is always to be proactive, right? And mark the fields with the non-duplicate values. Managing the sales pipeline. So this is another thing that's essential when you're starting to use your CRM, or even if you're already using it for a while. I used to say that when companies get serious about it, it's the one way to go serious about it is saying if it's not in Zoho, it didn't happen. And that ties with how you manage your sales pipeline. Is everything that could be generating a business opportunity should be a potential, because you're going to need to allocate sales time, sales effort, and you should be talking about this. So a good practice is to have a stage that is a qualifying stage, right? Because you don't want them, sometimes it takes, depending on the business, it could take quite a few hours, days or weeks to actually qualify a lead, for example. So you don't want those living in leads for a long time. You want to move them into potential, um, which means, having a company or contact you're talking to with a potential associated. And then you want to have a stage where you're just qualifying. So let's look at how that looks in the CRM. So let's go back again to our customization in the settings section. And in the potentials, the key field in potentials is the stage field. So the stage probability mapping option allows you to define the stages, probability you want, if they're open on your pipeline or not. So I would say, even if you want to make sure that the first step, and this could be even allocated to, for example, external sales, or a marketing team pre-qualifying things, it could, or salesperson full time. This could be qualifying, right? And once they're done, like especially if you have different people doing this, they have to move it. For example, everything that has been qualified moves to qualified. Everything that hasn't is just stalled, or you create something else as a phase, as a stage. This is um, this is a way to have a good way to have your stages really working for you. So when you are in your potentials, deals, opportunities module, all different names, you can see them. I really like to see them in this bucket, in this cabin view, because you could see right away, okay, this is what's being qualified. This needs to be meetings internally before you get a quote sent. And then everything that has a quote sent, then we can start talking, okay, is it about following up with all these quote sends? Is it about, is Can they be moved to a negotiation because it's actually going back and forth? We got a reply. And then obviously some businesses will have 3 stages, some businesses will have 8, depending on how many passages you have from one to the other, or from different people, for example. They need to be responsible for different phases, just to increase accountability and easier reporting. So last but not least, really important, I think, when you're starting is to build a very simple dashboard and activity tracking. It's also a very good way to know if you're using the CRM correctly or if your users are using it correctly, because this is when everyone says, "Well, hey, wait a second, but I did that. Why isn't it showing?" Oh, you didn't. You forgot to mark that. That's a prospect, not a suspect, or you forgot to convert that lead, or you didn't really have this or that. So that really allows for a very good conversation with all team members. So let me show you an example. Okay, let's just go to this home view. So for those of you that could be a bit confused with the CRM on where things are, and in terms of dashboards, there's a lot. So the way to think about this is always think of the first simple metric you want, right? Just write them down, put them down of top 5 things you want to measure. And then I would always start in this section called analytics or dashboards, depending on which version of the CRM you are, if you haven't renamed them something else. So this section has a lot of cool graphs for most needs, right? I think it tackles probably 50 or 60% of the needs. Um, Depending on what type of data you're looking at, leads, potentials. I always have to build a new one with the things I really want. But this allows you at least to see the type of graph you want, the type of how do you want to see the information, and that makes it faster to build your own. So this is an example where I want to track. So in this specific case, as a marketing team, we are prospecting. So we're doing the first, searching the market, prospecting names for this account. So I'm going to show you what I'm tracking here, right? What I want to track is how many contacts are being created, and this is tracking activity. Um, so, I name it who is doing it. My measure is the count of contacts that are created by month, and then the lead source in this case is gravity prospecting. And I want to benchmark because I have a target. I want to make sure I reach at least X per month. When you have this, and if you have something here that it's similar, then it's very easy to use, for example, the clone call it something else. Let's say you want to check leads that came from, lead source is, for example, sales prospecting or website. Um, and put something that makes no sense. And then how do I want to group them? So created is usually one of the best things. You just create it by month. But you could also be tracking like last activity, last time someone touched that record, on when is this projecting to be needed by, because you want to see that, by days. So you have a calendar. So just to show you an example here, right, because this would be a different way to show the data for this segmentation. I can have this per month. Gotta delete this one. So my first advice would be go through what's there and like, oh no, I actually want to see stuff like this, and use the clone functionality and then adjust the variables inside. That's the easiest way. If you have a bit more, deeper data, for example, I think I have a report here for sent email status. Let me go back. Uh, in terms of data. So let's say you have a lot of data, like in here, we've launched so many emails. You could export these or create graphs from reports. I'm going to show you a bit how, and we're kind of coming to our time. But when you're building a report, let's do something silly. You would want a summary or a matrix, so something that has a sum. So then you can create a graph. And once you have your graphs, then you can add them to your home section. So why did I start on analytics? I'm starting in the analytics section because there's a lot of choice for you to look at. What do I want to showcase? I just want to look at my pipeline. I want to look more at sales activity. There's cool graphs on sales trends as well that you could use. I haven't found this mega useful in the past, but it depends on what you're tracking. And once you have them here, then it's very easy to just in your home screen, select the ones you want to have as soon as someone comes in. And you can build this for yourself, for your team, or for a certain profile like customer service, sales managers, sales team, marketing. So this is the marketing screen, but I could customize, the home page and then create a new one and then select what I want to bring from here. Now, this is where your dashboards are going to be useful. So you want to use the revenue for this month, the potentials in pipeline, like this month. So you can start bringing your graphs and you can see them in real time. Or you could use your custom views. That's another way. So that answers kind of, well, doesn't, it answers a bit of what I suggested early on, which is create your view. So if you have a view that's just what you use every day, then just bring that in, right? So for example, I want to bring the view of the open RFQs. This will bring the list with a lot of details, but then at least I'm going to have it right there. I don't have to go to that view. So on my home, I have a section for graphs, but I could also have a section with the detail of what has come on, right? All the leads or the accounts I'm working on. So that is an example. I think I've just passed time. Let's see if there's another question. I think we've kind of answered. So best practice here for me is start with your 5 top key metrics you want to track and that you're using in meetings. That's another very important tip. Just if you start using these in your meetings, in your one-to-ones, when you're meeting with your team, people realize that you are using the CRM, that you're looking at that data. Or even if your boss is not and you're a sales team member and you just want to start, making use of the CRM in a broader way, just start bringing the CRM. Well, everything you ask me doesn't need to be on an Excel or a note. Let's look at them here. And that's a really good practice. Any other questions? If anyone has questions that wants to ask just, verbally without typing, go ahead and unmute. I think I'll allocate 2-3 more minutes for questions. Otherwise, I would say that we have a lot of resources about Zoho and different trainings we've done in our blog. So if you go to the resources section on gravitym.com, on the blog section, you'll have, you can select just the category of Zoho. Next steps for this would be every month we meet. So if you do have, questions or anything you want to check, do just join. Let us know. It's very useful for us when people just ask questions beforehand. Because we can actually customize and adjust the topic. So let us know if there's something you want to look at. We also work with other Zoho platforms. The CRM is usually the most popular and people have more questions, but we also work with a lot of other ones from campaigns, Sales IQ, forms, page sales, a lot of them. So let us know if you need help. And if you don't have any questions, I'll wish you all an awesome rest of your day. Thank you so much for joining us. See you next month.